Welcome back, everyone, to the Weather at a Glance video. In today's forecast, we're going to be going over a potential tornado outbreak that could be happening tomorrow, Tuesday, November 29th, 2022. All coming up in just a bit. All right, now on our first slide, we're taking a look at that SPC Outlook for tomorrow. So this is the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center Outlook. This is the categorical outlook. And first things first, we're going to get into the first category here. We have our green marginal risk of severe weather. Now, that light green region there is a thunderstorm outlook region there. So that's just general thunderstorms. That's nothing to be concerned about, this light green region around here. But the first region we need to get into for severe weather is this dark green region here. So this is our marginal risk of severe weather region here. And this is just going to be your general severe weather. Not really a lot to go on. We still do have some of these areas within here in a tornado risk, but generally not too much of a tornado threat in this region here. Now, as we move into the yellow region here, we start to get into more of that severe weather. This is where your tornado threat kind of does start to peak up there. And we'll get into the tornado outlook from the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center in just a minute. But here you can see we have a slight risk of severe weather. There is a hail threat, and this is kind of where that hail threat starts to get a little more significant. This is the last zone for the hail threat, though. Pretty much all the same with the enhanced, moderate, and slight risk. Now, the marginal would be the lesser factor of that hail. Let's go ahead and get into the next region here in our enhanced region here. So this is enhanced risk of severe weather, and this is where things start to get pretty severe. This is where things definitely start to pick up a notch, and this is where you need to be on your A game. You need to be weather aware and ready for tomorrow. Now, again, I normally don't like to get too serious with this, but this is definitely a day you want to be focused. You want to be weather aware because there is a very large setup happening tomorrow, and it does not look to be capped. There's little convective inhibition going on in the atmosphere. It's a Dixie Alley day, and it's definitely going to be something you want to be paying attention to and weather aware for. All right, on our final risk, we're taking a look at that moderate risk, which doesn't happen all too often, but today there is a moderate risk here of severe weather for tomorrow, Tuesday, November 29th. We have the outlook was updated this morning as a moderate risk, a day 2 moderate risk here, and that is for tomorrow, Tuesday, November 29th. So the moderate risk is definitely the area, of course, the highest area level, and this is the area where you want to be the most weather aware. Now, everywhere green and up, so dark green and up, you want to be weather aware for tomorrow, but especially in these last 2 regions. These are the areas where you really want to be paying attention tomorrow. Have a no weather radio, have warnings turned on in the settings on your iPhone, and make sure that you're just weather aware tomorrow. Have a news station ready, and make sure that you aren't out and about during the storm times. Now, moving on to our next slide, we're taking a look at the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center tornado outlook here. And first things first, we are going to get into that green risk here, that dark green risk, which is our 2% chance of tornadoes within a 25-mile given location. So here, generally, you're just really going to have, as it said, 2% risk of tornadoes within a 25-mile given location here. Again, not too far. Now, the thing is people often get confused by the mathematical percentage here. This scale does not go up to 100%. As it would on any other scale. So as you can see, the highest we go is 60%, and that is that rarely ever happens. We never see 60%. So that just goes to show you that these warnings, even though this final one is only 15%, it is also in a hatched risk, which we will just get into in a minute about what hatched means. But right there, you can already see that 15% doesn't sound like a lot in a mathematical point of view, but that actually is a very high percentage. That's something you want to be paying attention to. But the 2% region, this is as low as it gets. This is the lowest region for any tornado concern that the National Weather Service issues. But if you live in this region, don't downplay this at all. Just make sure that you are weather aware. So again, not as much of a tornado risk for these areas in the light green, but you still want to be weather aware in those regions. Make sure you are ready for storms tomorrow and the potential for a tornado somewhere near you that could be a possibility. Now, let's go ahead and get into the brown region here. We have our brown 5% region here. And as you can see, this is the 5% risk of tornadoes occurring within a 25-mile given location. So again, something I like to do is you could say, so within this 25-mile given location, that could be within 25 miles of your home or wherever you're located if you are in this risk. So again, let's say you have a 5% chance of tornadoes within 25 miles of you. That's basically what this is saying. Now, we do get into the more upper risks here when we move into the 10% region. So again, this is kind of where things start to kick it up a little bit. This would be for your enhanced risk of severe weather. If you look back on the previous outlook that we just went over, this matches up nearly completely with the enhanced risk zone there. And as you can see, this is under the hatched risk. So this is the significant, if you look over here, this says significant over here. And this is where the National Weather Service expects EF2 or greater tornadoes to occur. It's a possibility. So again, they're expecting the possibility of EF2 or greater tornadoes to occur within this region. So that's what that dashed black line there means. That's basically what they're saying. And any risk in this region that goes up higher is only an even further state of what they're expecting. So you have a greater risk of what they're expecting. So again, if we move into this red region here, the 15% risk, and this is in the hatch zone, that is a 15% risk of tornadoes occurring within 25 miles of your given location. And this is the region where the National Weather Service expects the greatest risk for EF2 or greater tornadoes to occur. So keep that in mind. Again, we don't want to strike any fear into y'all. That is not what this is about. Just remain weather aware tomorrow. Have flashlights ready, have batteries ready, just in the case that storms do knock out power, and make sure that you have a no weather radio ready. And of course, absolutely always have a way to receive warnings, whether that be on television, whether it be on your mobile device. Make sure that you have something to tell you warnings for your area. All right, now moving into our next National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center outlook here, we have the Day 2 wind outlook. So this, as you suspected, is going to cover our wind threat for tomorrow. So let's go ahead and get into this first region here. We have our brown 5% risk of damaging winds occurring within a 25-mile given location here. So again, this is just going to be your general wind threat. Here you have the possibility to receive some damaging winds, maybe knock down tree limbs, blow over lawn furniture, nothing too substantial. But again, this is somewhere where you can expect that damaging wind threat. This goes along with our marginal risk of severe weather. Now, as we move into our next risk here, we have our 15% chance of damaging winds occurring within a 25-mile given location. You can see that we really do kind of up the risk here. So you likely will experience damaging winds within this region. Nothing too substantial, of course, although that isn't rolled out. But generally, you could be expecting some higher winds with your storms that move through. Now, moving on to our next region here, we are in our 30% risk here, and this is the final risk that we go up, though we do have a portion that is under the significant risk there. So again, that is kind of like the higher up. That is where the National Weather Service is expecting substantial wind to happen as a possibility of that happening. So this is the 30% risk, and then, of course, we get into our final area here, the black hatched region here that includes portions of Mississippi, northeastern Louisiana, and of course far southern. I think that may include a portion of far southern Tennessee there. So keep that in mind too. Far southwestern Tennessee. That's just right there on the border. So again, this is an area where you really want to watch out for, though all of these areas you definitely do want to be weather aware, but especially in this hatched 30% risk here. Again, anywhere in northern Mississippi. So basically, Mississippi is going to be a severe weather zone tomorrow. Anywhere in Mississippi, you can see you're all included in severe weather, but especially these northern portions, anywhere from central western Mississippi all the way up through the northern portions there. So keep that in mind. All right, and on our final outlook here, we have the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center hail outlook for day 2. So here we only have 2 regions. Again, not as great of a hail threat tomorrow since we are talking about far southern areas. So again, we still do have cold air aloft, but not as much as we would per se up here in the northern regions, up here in North Dakota and South Dakota during summertime events. So again, you would see a lot of hail up in those regions, not particularly tomorrow, though we are going to see hail. It is very likely that we're going to see some larger hail. It's not as great of a threat as it would be in the northern regions for this time of year. So let's go ahead and get into it. Our first region here, we have our 5% risk of hail. You can expect about 5% risk within 25 miles of a given location. Again, not too great of a risk here, but don't rule out the factor that hail could be a possibility. We still do have colder air up aloft. And especially in these northern areas up here, anywhere Tennessee and up, you could have maybe a greater risk of hail potentially as the air does get colder aloft up in those regions. Now, we're going to go into that 15% risk here. Now, again, the updraft also plays an important factor. So where we have these stronger updrafts coming in, we have the support for larger hail. So the stronger winds that are pushing up, the larger hail that can develop within the storm. So for these areas where we're going to have those stronger storms, we can also have larger hail, seeing as we have a stronger updraft. So this is your 15% risk. Again, no significant hatched risk here. So no hatched risk for hail in this for tomorrow's outlook, though that could change. I'm not going to make a video tomorrow for this. We're just going to go live tomorrow. I'm not going to make a forecast video tomorrow, but This National Weather Service outlook is going to change overnight, and something could be added or something could be taken away. It's all a possibility, but generally we might see something added tomorrow. So we may see another category for hail added on here. It just depends on what the National Weather Service is feeling and what they suspect is going to happen tomorrow. But as of right now, this is what we're looking at. All right, and on our first forecast model slide here, we are looking at the 12Z HRRR run here. So first we're looking at the 500 millibar height and wind. We're going to be taking a look at this 500 millibar jet coming down. So as you can see, we are going to go into this. You can see we have that trough developing over the northwest, and as you can see, it keeps developing and heads further down into the central U.S. And here we have our upper level divergence forming, where we are going to expect that low to form that is going to bring all of that severe weather down south. So again, we have that low forming with that upper level divergence that's happening right there. And again, we have that ridge in the eastern U.S. that is kind of keeping things more calm in the eastern U.S. right now. But as you can see down here to the south, we are seeing that low develop, and this is only going to add to that wind shear. So of course, we have that warm air advection that is coming up from the south, and it's quite substantial warm air advection tomorrow. But as you can see, that's going to keep surface winds kind of in a northeastern motion. So that's going to be southwesterly winds moving up northeast and northeast. And of course, when we come aloft to the 500 millibar jet, we're going to have winds coming with the jet stream like this. You can see we have quite substantial wind shear for tomorrow. We will go into the wind shear factor in just a bit, but as you can see, we have quite substantial wind shear for tomorrow. And once those updrafts start to poke up into the storm, poke up into the atmosphere, we're going to see those updrafts start to spin, and that's going to lead to our tornado threat for tomorrow. All right, and now we're going to take a look at our lapse rates. So this is our 700 to 500 millibar lapse rates, and as you can see, we have quite substantial temperature difference here. Some of these areas tomorrow in Louisiana and southern Mississippi are expecting to be in those zones of around 7.5 to 8 degrees Celsius per kilometer difference. So that's quite a great difference of temperature if you look at these areas here. That's going to lead to substantial hail growth. As we talked about, again, not as great of a hail threat as other risk days, but we still do have the threat for hail tomorrow. And as those updrafts poke further and further up into the atmosphere, some of these tops could be pushing about 50, maybe even 60,000 feet tomorrow with the type of threat that we're going into. And we can see some of that going on in our simulated infrared satellite that we have from the HRRR a couple slides later. But as you can see, we have a lot of large temperature difference in the atmosphere per kilometer. That's, again, for a lot of these areas, we're seeing generally 6.5 to 7 degrees Celsius per change per kilometer. But as we get into tomorrow, as we move later, we will, and as we see those warmer temperatures move into the lower levels of the atmosphere, we will have about 7 to 8 degrees Celsius change per kilometer. So as you can see, again, I'll highlight these general areas where we see that. That's going to be for Texas and areas over in the Mississippi. A lot of these areas are going to expect that substantial temperature difference tomorrow. And as those updrafts poke up there, that'll lead up into the atmosphere. That will lead to greater hail development. And of course, further storm development that will increase the threat for severe weather. So a lot going on tomorrow in the atmosphere. All right, now here we're taking a look at our 2-meter AGL temperature in degrees Fahrenheit with the HRRR. And as you can see, we're going to start things off pretty cool tomorrow. We're going to start off with temperatures in the 50s, upper 40s, lower 50s, and that's only going to change. We're going to have that warm air advection come up from the south, and again, that's going to be a north and northeasterly motion, so southwesterly winds moving up with that warm air advection. You can see quite substantial warm air advection with this, and then later we see that cold front come through, so we're going to have quite warm temperatures move into this area, and then we're going to have that large cold front come through, and we're seeing temperatures backing behind this in the 40s. Earlier, when it first passes, we'll see temperatures of about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we move into the 40s and maybe even some upper 30-degree temperatures if you move into northern Arkansas there. You can see some 32 degrees temperature. We are expecting some freezing temperatures behind this, but not far south in the Dixie Alley here for Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana. But we do see tomorrow, those temperatures will move in about 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and then we see later we may get down into the 30s come the next couple days as that cold front progresses and that cold air mass moves in. So a lot happening here with temperature. Again, you can see a lot of that warm air from the Gulf of Mexico surges up with that warm air advection from the Gulf of Mexico, and that's just going to be in that warm sector before we get to that cold front that moves through, and that's going to be quite a substantial cold front pushing these storms and backing behind it. So we're going to see a lot of supercells develop in the warm sector tomorrow. Again, those are going to be warm sector supercells, and then we have that cold front that's going to come through, which is likely going to cause everything to become high precipitation storm modes, and that's generally just going to turn everything linear. And as it progresses, we may see some showers down here in the southeastern U.S. as we progress later, and it could move into portions of Florida as a high precipitation QLCS style system there that moves through just a line of precipitation. Not too much expecting for these eastern regions, though some severe weather could be prominent within the next couple days. Just some very light severe weather. I don't suspect much is going to go on with that, but the main event is going to be tomorrow, which we will have quite a setup for tomorrow. All right, now moving into our next slide, we're taking a look at that 2-meter AGL dew point. So this is going to be talking about our moisture that we have set up for tomorrow at the surface level. So again, with that warm air advection, we are expecting a lot of humidity to come up from the Gulf, and we're going to take a look at this warm air advection from the Gulf here. We see a lot of 70-degree dew points and 60-degree dew points as you move up further. So 60-degree dew points for northern Mississippi, and then we have 70-degree dew points for some of these far southern portions here. Low to mid 70s. So we have a lot of moisture setting up at the ground. Again, for some of these areas to the south, we do have very high humidity levels, almost 90%, probably around 90 to 100% in some of those areas, close to 100% humidity for some of these far southern areas. And this means the further south you go, the higher chance you have for large rain-wrapped tornadoes. So again, all of these tornadoes within this area have the potential to be large tomorrow, but especially down here to the south, we have a chance for even further rain-wrapped tornadoes. So I do suspect any tornadoes that happen tomorrow are going to be substantially rain-wrapped. We have a lot of moisture, but especially down here to the south, we have a lot of humidity, and just with the temperatures, it's going to be near 100% humidity tomorrow, and it's going to be quite substantially rain-wrapped for any tornadoes that come through. Very high precipitation storms tomorrow. And I do suspect a lot of these are going to be substantially rain-wrapped tomorrow. I wouldn't doubt any less. Especially for Dixie Alley, we see a lot of those rain-wrapped tornadoes, but tomorrow is going to be quite a substantial day for high precipitation storm modes. All right, now moving on to our next slide, we're taking a look at that simulated infrared satellite here in degrees Celsius. So again, you can see some of these cloud tops developing. The further darker these get, that shows you how colder the tops are, and that shows you how much higher some of these tops are. So we see some of these black colors moving in here, gray and darker black colors here. You can see we have about 20 degrees, that would be negative 70 to about negative 80 degrees Celsius for some of these tops here. So it would be poking up pretty high into the atmosphere there, and we see a lot of these supercells developing over here in the warm sector before that cold front moves through. We see a lot of very tall peaking storms over here. And then as you can see what I talked about earlier, it's going to go linear. So we see over here in Alabama, that's kind of where we expect a lot of those storms to go linear. But the first start of it, you can see in this circle here, that's where our initial point of view is going to start. We're going to start those initial storms in initial warm sector supercells, and then later we're going to see that cold front take over, and it's going to go linear in the late evening and early morning hours. All right, now I want to go over the bulk shear, 0 to 6 kilometers. So we're not really going to do the 0 to 1 kilometer. We want to do more of the larger portion of the atmosphere here where the storms are going to be developing. And as you can see within the sheared region, you can even see some of these storms starting to pop up. Those are the storm updrafts popping up into the wind shear there. A lot of these little holes in the atmosphere here that we're seeing within this sheared region. You see a lot of these storms updrafts poking in and just tearing right through this region. It's going to be utilizing a lot of this shear here. We're going to see these storms rapidly rotating tomorrow. So a lot of rapidly rotating cells tomorrow, and there's no doubt that some of these could potentially produce large tornadoes tomorrow, so keep that in mind. I don't really want to hype this up too much, but I definitely want to put that out there. I don't want to downplay it at all. Tomorrow is definitely going to be a day you want to look out for. We have a lot of shear in the atmosphere, especially for this area right here, for anywhere from Louisiana, northeast Louisiana, all the way to Tennessee. Especially, we have some areas up in Memphis here. It goes all the way up to Memphis, that moderate risk, and we see just all of this area is in that risk for some potentially large tornadoes tomorrow. So again, that's a potential factor. That doesn't mean that is going to happen, but there is a likelihood that that could happen tomorrow. So keep that in mind, stay weather aware, and be prepared just in case that were to happen. All right, here we have our composite reflectivity. So this is simulated reflectivity as you would see on a radar. So again, if you're looking at live radar, you would see reflectivity as the precipitation mode. But here you can see the HRRR forecast model is simulating reflectivity here. So this is what it could look like tomorrow with the reflectivity. And first things first, we're going to get into some of these supercell storms here. We want to pay attention to how these have hooks here. Some of these supercells that first develop in the warm sector, you can see that they have hooks on them. And that, if you ever see hooks develop on the HRRR forecast model, that's already a sign that if the simulated reflectivity is already calling for that, there is a likelihood that you are definitely going to see some well-pronounced hooks tomorrow and rapidly rotating storms, which could lead to tornado development and possibly even some large tornado development tomorrow. Again, as you can see, I've talked about it goes high precipitation and linear. All these storms are going to be high precipitation tomorrow, but what I mean by high precipitation in this form is that we're going to see a large linear system move through. So MCS, possibly even QLCS, depending on the type of energy we have there. A lot of just linear high precipitation storm mode going through that is going to form from these supercells. So again, we see that warm sector, those warm sector supercells, and then develop over there, and then we see that cold front push through, which is going to cause everything to go linear. So really tomorrow you have to be weather aware if you live up in these portions. But then, of course, as we move into the next couple days, I don't suspect too much is going to happen down in the southeast here. So maybe some strong to severe thunderstorms, but nothing really too much tornado-wise in that manner. All right, and our final forecast slide that we're going to be going over is the significant tornado parameter. I don't like to use this too often because it is kind of a cheat tool per se. But I am going to go over it because this is supposed to be weather at a glance, and I want to give you the most at a glance view that I can give you. And here, first, I want to say that this is going to be taking pretty much everything that we just went over for the past 20 minutes or so, and it is going to compile it into one tool that we can kind of use to see where the likelihood of tornadoes is going to be. And I really do want to point out that this is a very large region on the significant tornado parameter. We normally don't see such a sector of this that is so large for tornado development, especially some of these areas in the yellows and reds. That's where you really want to watch out for. Now, any category on here is really a risk that you want to pay attention to, but especially when we get up into some of these red portions and even pinks, we see some levels of 5.5 on there. That's just a measurement they use on this scale. And that's a really high amount for these. So especially if we look at, let me go ahead and zoom into some of these areas where we really see a lot of those yellows and reds, and that's pretty much anywhere within this region. There's a lot of areas, so of course there will still be some outside of the region. We see some down there for Mobile, Alabama. I don't really suspect too much is going to go on there. Definitely severe weather down there, but I don't know about any significant tornadoes there as of right now, though that is not rolled out. That could be a possibility. But we do see a lot of these areas. This is an area up here where you're really going to want to pay attention for tornado activity tomorrow. Anywhere in the severe weather risk you really want to pay attention to for hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes. But here tomorrow, this is really the area that I expect the most tornado genesis to occur, if any at all, which I do expect tornado genesis to occur tomorrow. We are expecting tornadoes in this region. So that is why I wanted to make this video. This is definitely a day that you want to pay attention to, and this is really a day that you really want to be weather aware. Again, I don't want to strike fear into anybody, but I just want to make sure that you're weather aware. Anybody that's watching, because I know this is a very high populated area. There's a lot of cities within this region, a lot of cities within any of the regions that I've talked about, whether it's the marginal, the slight, the enhanced, or the moderate. There is a lot of people. There's a lot of people in the Dixie Alley. This is a high populated area, and I just want to make this video because I want people to be weather aware. And tomorrow is definitely a day that you don't want to downplay. You don't want to hype it either, but you definitely don't want to downplay it because it is a day that you want to pay attention to. I want to thank you all so much for watching today's video. A big thanks to today's sources, Pivotal Weather, where all those forecast models that you saw in today's video came from, and the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center, where all those outlooks came from that we went over in the beginning of the video. I would ask you to consider subscribing for more U.S. forecasts free of charge, and I would ask you to consider following the Weather at a Glance official Facebook page for more inside information and complimentary personal forecasts when you message me on my Facebook page. Again, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.